The factory design pattern lets us do two things. The first thing that it allows us to do is very much like an interface. It allows us to abstract away the concrete class that we're working with. And so to use the factory pattern, we're going to create all of our objects in the factory, and we're going to have a method that we call to create that object. That way we don't have to explicitly say new bow and arrow, because that ties us to a specific type. Now we know this can only be called. Let's go ahead and make a factory class to show you what I mean. We're going to call this, we could call it a weapon factory traditionally, but actually in this case let's be creative and let's call it an arsenal. And the metaphor with the name goes even further in the fact that you find all of your weapons in an arsenal. This is where you're going to go to find your weapons. So if I'm a developer in the future working on this code, I want to know, dude, where are all the weapons in this application? What are my different possibilities? Instead of them being spread out all over the code base, let's put them in one spot so they're easy to find, easy to work with. So we're simply going to return a weapon. It's going to be called bow and arrow. And you return new bow and arrow. Now you'll notice two things here. First of all, you'll notice that we're returning a weapon, which is good. It's an interface. Second, you'll notice that I'm using a static method. Now static methods are unique because they don't have to be associated to a specific object. They can be associated to a general class, and so they're almost like calling a method on a header file in C. So now, instead of creating this bow and arrow, let's just create, you can just say arsenal dot bow and arrow. Boom, done. Now another thing that the factory pattern does for us is that people don't typically name their bow and arrow, but they'll give a name to their sword like Excalibur. We can't provide that type of interface on a constructor. At least on the factory, we can be like, hey, if you're making a weapon like a sword, you better pass in the name, because people name swords for some reason. So new sword. And see, we would not be able to otherwise effectively enforce that rule in our code because interfaces can't be used on constructors in that manner. So now we can just say arsenal dot sword Excalibur. And that is the factory design pattern.